Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us on another episode of the Heavy Lifting Podcast. Today, we have the pleasure of being joined by Jesse at Moxie Movers. I'm excited to take a really deep dive. Jesse has found a great balance between work life. So I'd love to take a deep dive into that. But before that, Jesse, tell us a little bit about yourself, your business, and when you got into the moving industry.
Sure. Yeah, my name is Jesse Whitaker. I've been doing this for 31 years now. My dad said he got me a job the week after I graduated from high school, and I guess at this point I've done it all up and down the East Coast of well, I don't know where you're watching this, but the United States. So everywhere from Boston to Miami and in between. And I settled in Richmond, Virginia, because well, ultimately it made sense, but um, I don't know. I didn't think it was going to end up this way, but I'm glad it did.
That's amazing. And sounds like you've been all up and down the East Coast, which is really amazing to experience different cities, what the moving's like in every one of those locations. When you just finished with high
Yeah.
school, you got your first moving job. Who was it with? What location were you in? And how long before you realized you wanted to do it yourself?
Well, that was in Gaithersburg, Maryland, which is right at the suburb of Washington, D.C. So I used to commute an hour to that job, believe it or
Wow.
not. And it was rough and tumble. It's a pretty big operation. And so I think they had 30 trucks, maybe more. Um, and there was a lot of people there I had never been exposed to. And because I came from West Virginia, I was just in the country. And so here I am with these guys who are everything from just got here a year ago from somewhere else or just got out of jail a year ago.
Mm,
And I think that it was, I think it was funny. My first day, maybe it was my first week, I asked these guys on the crew that I was working with, what's for lunch, and they said cigarettes. And they weren't joking either. That was it. It was and so I work at a place like that. I work somewhere else. I start to get a sense of like what makes these places tick. What do I like? What do I not like? How would I do it different? I think I'd probably been doing it for maybe 10 years before I even thought about doing it for myself. And when I actually told the guy I worked for, my boss, uh, that I was thinking about starting a moving company. And he said, I don't know why anyone would want to start a moving company if they had. He said if I had $10,000, I don't think I would use it to start a moving company. But you know,
mm,
I think that it's something you do because, well, I mean, this was my uh, road into it was I just had no other choice, and probably a good place to be if you're going to start a business is to have your back against the wall and to do whatever you can.
yeah, you sort of burn all the other bridges down. Often business is that way. So you only have one direction out. So you
Yeah.
need to go all in, you need to commit. Now, when you started moving 31 years ago, so in the 90s, pretty crazy. How much were you getting paid per hour, if you still remember?
I think it was minimum wage. It
Okay.
was $10 an hour.
Which is crazy to think that 30 years ago, because now there's some crews where you're starting off guys at $15 an hour. It's crazy that over 30 years, the minimum wage has only increased by
Yeah.
$5.
Yeah, and I worked at places where they would pay you more than minimum wage. I worked at places where they would pay you minimum wage and then let you. They even put something in the paperwork that said the guys make minimum wage, so please tip them.
Got
And
it.
all over the place. But I think that I liked the job. I think that wasn't doing it for the money. I actually liked doing it.
What was it you liked about it? Because a lot of people talk about how difficult the moving industry is, especially if you're working in it. Was it meeting the
Yeah,
clients? Was it the workout?
I think if I've thought about it a lot, I don't think I really knew at the time, but I think that, and this was something I found that when I was at a company where this was encouraged and more a part of the culture, maybe I started to appreciate it more. But that I think, okay, and it's a little bit philosophical, but I think that a group of guys have been waking up and going out and working as a team for 50,000 years. Like that's all we've ever done. And so I don't know. I think it appeals to me on that level. Like this is about as essential as it gets. And I mean, not just waking up and going to work, but working as part of a small team on a project, trying to accomplish some kind of a goal, working together. Because I think more than really maybe a lot of other trades, you may work with other people, but you're not working directly as a team, two, three, or four guys all focused on the same goal. I think that yes. But I played a lot of team sports. I think it appealed to me in that sense too. It's kind of like being on a team. It's kind of like going out for a hunt. I don't know, but I think there's something there.
Simplistic in the most basic sense is that you've got your group of guys, and it's nice because I'm glad you said it yourself too. Is it's a team sport at the end of the day. It's not tennis where it's sort of one on one, right? It's very much like if you have a good crew, and I'm sure you know this feeling when you have a crew that you can trust.
Yeah,
They're good at what they do. It's
yeah,
just so satisfying to see the load go well, no
yeah,
damages. And it's
yeah,
also nice when you can rely on the other guys. Like someone's upstairs, they're doing one room, you're doing the room downstairs. You know what it's like when you have guys you can't trust. You come upstairs and nothing's been wrapped, and
yeah,
he wants your help, like wrapping stuff, which can be wrapped with one man. Versus the other side of that, everything just flows smoothly, and you
yeah.
finish up, and it's much nicer. Now, how do you keep that company culture at Moxie Movers?
Um, I'll tell you in a second. It just made me think of something when you were saying that.
Please.
My observation that I still tell people regularly, like the guys who are working for me, I tell them that there's no bad jobs. There's only bad crews.
Mm.
You can do the worst job in the world, and if you're with the right guys, it's still fun. But yeah, culture is. I think that for some companies, it may be the lowest priority. In my opinion, it's the first priority.
Mm.
I think if you don't have that, you can have everything else. You can have shiny trucks and slick brochures, but if you don't have the culture, then you're not going to keep the good people. You're not. Nobody's going to like the job, and nobody's going to perform. Because I never really was performing for the money. I wanted to do better. I wanted to do my best because of the guys I was working with. I don't want to let them down. We all want to work together. Uh, so how do I keep it? Or uh, honestly, it's it's pretty simple. I think it's just beer. It's beers after work, and like we have a pool table at the office, and everybody shoots pool and drinks beer, and that's it. It's that simple.
I'm curious your opinion on this because growing up in the UK, spending some time in Spain, and now being in the US, one thing I see a lot. I play volleyball. It's my main sport, right? We play volleyball. You finish and you go home, right? And that doesn't quite build that level of culture.
Yeah,
But when you in Spain does this better than anyone else I know. You do some kind of group activity, and then afterwards you go and you do tapas or whatever it is, right? You grab a small little meal, you drink some beer,
yeah,
and you get to know more about the people you're around. It
yeah.
seems like you've done that same thing, but within work. You really want everyone to know each other and almost be like just an extension of the family by the sounds of it.
Yeah, I never. It's not like I ever had to force anyone to do it. It's just because I worked at a place where everybody would we would get beer on the way back to the office. Everybody would show up at the office, and then before you know it, there's like three or four crews there. So there's like 12 guys there. Everybody's hanging out and really enjoying themselves. Uh, and the guys who ran the company, they hated it, and they were always like, "Come on, there's beer cans everywhere." And I'm thinking like, dude, don't you understand? This is what makes your business work. This is the secret, and you're discouraging it. I mean, yeah, sure. Maybe there's a mess when I come into the office in the morning, and maybe something got broken, like someone broke a chair. Okay, but at what cost? Like okay, I lost a chair, but the culture is intact. We're still doing because I guess I don't really have any illusions about that. I think that um, it's always been my experience. I mean, that this is just what comes natural to me, and this is what I enjoy. And I think that everybody I've ever worked with felt the same way.
I'd love to talk to your team members because I'm sure they think very high. I'm sure they think very highly of you. And at the end of the day, what it comes down to is just personal connections. As we grow up, when you're in school, high school, or college, you have that. It's forced upon you because you're around your peers all day, every day. But then when you
Yeah,
enter the workforce, how do you make friends? It's either in the workforce or it's hobbies outside of work. And a lot of people have one or no hobbies outside of work. So
yeah,
building that within the work system is really smart, not just as a business owner, but also just as like building a community. People want to come to
yeah.
work because they look forward to at the end of the day shooting some pool with the boys, having a couple beers, couple hours,
Right,
and then heading home, right?
right, right. And it's it's not it's it's more like I don't have to encourage it. It's going to happen. I'm just allowing it to happen. I'm not. I'm seeing the benefit and the value of it, and well, I like doing it too. So it's it just kind of fits naturally, and
Hmm.
like there's two things that makes me think of. Um, a friend of mine brought me this shirt from I think it's from Kenya, but it's a beer brand. It has an elephant. It's called Tusker. And in the back it says Bara Yakazi, which translates. I didn't know this. I wore the shirt for 10 years. And then I was wearing it. I had it on in a convenience store, and the lady who was working at the register, I guess she was from wherever it was like Nairobi. I'm not sure exactly where it was from. But she said, "Do you know what this says on the back of your shirt?" And so she translated for me, and it says "beers after work." And then I thought, okay, this is an international phenomenon. Like, we didn't invent this. This is how it's been forever. You work, you drink some whatever. Like in Egypt, it was beer made out of honey, or all over Europe, it was wine and beer. And this is just how people operate. I don't want to change it. I think let's embrace it. It's what we do.
Yeah, and I think the modern version of that is happy hour, right? On every Friday after work, people go
Yeah,
for the happy hour, but night, like you said, you don't need to force it. It sort of happens naturally. So I like
yeah.
this. Your approach to anyone watching, if you own a moving company and you want to build a little bit more company culture, just throw a pool table in the back and
You
you're
have
good to go.
to. I mean, you have to be willing to accept the downside of it. Is that things might get a little out of control occasionally, but that's okay.
Hmm. Sometimes it's nice to sort
It's
of
worth
take
it.
a step back and let things just happen. Now,
Yeah.
what I'm curious about, often in teams, one bad apple can have a rippling effect, right? You have one guy on the team who just
Right.
isn't cutting his weight. So the next person above him says, you know what, he's not doing enough work. Let me do a little bit less myself. How do you spot the bad apples early
Yeah.
on, keep them out?
Most of the time, people start. Well, in our case, most of the time when somebody comes in, it's somebody who already knows one or more people who work there. So they've kind of been vetted ahead of time. And then if they made it that far and they're still no good, after a week or two, I'm asking the people who are working with them, like, what do you think of this guy? If they don't like him, then I don't keep him.
I love that.
And
It's
and then there's people who start off good and turn bad.
Hmm.
You have to talk to them. You have to confront them. You have to say, okay, this is what I'm hearing. And they'll always tell you, oh, it's this, it's that. I'm having a tough week. But a lot of times that's just bullshit, really.
Hmm.
And you have to be really forthright with them and say, you know, here's the line. If you cross it, you'll be fired.
I like that. You set rules very clearly. Well, there's two things actually I want to touch upon there. Vetting people through your own internal group is great. If you can ask your group of guys, do you have anyone who's looking for work? Do you know someone who's
Yeah.
good? Because, like you said, they're only going to refer someone who they think is actually going to be a good fit because they know their job's going to get a whole lot more difficult or a lot more easy if this
Yeah.
person's on within. So I love that insight that hire from within almost a little bit different, but we understand. Then
Yeah.
in addition to that is you don't just need to fire someone when they're not at their level, especially if they start off good. That's not always the answer. Be very candid with them. I love that. Communication is what often breaks teams. Is just let them know what's going on, let them know there's rules, and how they can fix it, but also give them an opportunity to sort of speak out their own side. Because, like you said, they might be having a tough week, and just feeling
Yeah.
heard and understood goes a long way.
Yeah.
So I'm sure
It
that builds that
I'd
really
say
good bond.
like 8 out of 10 times it does the job. It gets things fixed. And sometimes they just never recover, and that's it.
Hmm. Do you have kids, by the way, Jesse?
I do, yeah, I've got 3. 3 boys. 2 of them work for me, now, but that was really the reason this whole thing started.
Mm,
I was an oil painter, I was showing in a gallery, and I was working in a moving company, but I started to realize, like, okay, if I don't do something, this isn't gonna work out long term, so I think you've got to have something like that. I think that if you're just starting a business because you want to make money, it'll get you so far. But if you have to do it because people are depending on you and there is no calling out or taking a day off, then you probably do well.
hmm. There's a interesting statistic I read a while ago, which is that married men, and I think it's probably directly linear with the amount of children they have,
Yeah,
earn more because they have more of a reason to do it, right? If you have no
yeah,
dependents, like you said, you're just doing it for yourself. This brings us back to sort of
yeah,
5,000 years ago. It's the same thing. The bigger family you have, the more dependents you have, the more hunting and gathering you need to go do. In the case of
right.
this, the more mouths you need to feed. At the end of
Yeah,
the day, you're paying for your kids to go to
like
school.
there's no. I'm tired. I'm going home. Like that's just not an option. Yeah, and
Now, sorry, what I was going to ask is,
good.
what have you learned from being a business owner that translates to parenting?
That that I always say I've got 45 children. Um, it's pretty much the same. You have to lead, and you have to. It's the same thing. You have to encourage. You have to lead, and you have to set clear expectations and boundaries. And there's just no room for being. Yeah, you got to find that balance between. Well, I need to be compassionate here. I need to be empathetic here. I need to be understanding, but I also need to say this thing can't happen again, and this is what I expect, and push people a little bit. I had a lot of good coaches, and I had my parents as well. A little bit of pushing, just a little encouragement, to try a little harder, go a little further. So I'd say it's pretty much the same. Other than, I can't tell my employees to do things like I can my children, but in a way, it's pretty similar.
Hmm. That's what made me think of the question. Is some of the things you were saying sort of reminded me of that parenting as well, and treating people with compassion, but also pushing them to be the best version of themselves. Now, you
Yeah.
mentioned you you mentioned you had some coaches. Are those life coaches, business coaches, father figures?
Oh yeah, actually, all well, sports coaching, but I think it was 2 or 3 years into it, I got a business coach, and that was great. That was really great. Probably one of the best things I did. I think I've tried to encourage some of my friends. I actually have a lot of friends who started moving companies also. Try to encourage some of them to hire a business coach. The price can be a little bit off-putting, but it is worth it. It
Tell
really.
me a little bit more about that. How did you find your business coach? And it's
Uh,
interesting too, because like you said, the pricing can be off-putting, but I'm sure the ROI for you specifically has been through the roof.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. I think that you probably come away with it with. I mean, you told me a lot of things, but I can think of 3 or 4 that I probably encounter weekly. They just keep they just keep reappearing and being true over and over again. Things that he told me. But my accountant set up this thing with where the business coach gave a presentation to all of the accountant's clients. And so he asked everybody in the room, he said, okay, so you started a business so you could have more free time, more money, and something else. I don't know. And he said, like, raise your hand if you have any of those things. And I was like, oh, you got me. Yeah, I don't have any of those things. I work 70 hours a week. And then, yeah. So, um, but because I see a lot of moving, I see this thing is kind of common in the companies that it'll be a guy who has a truck and he keeps it at one truck because that's what he can control and he wants to be on every job and he doesn't want to let go of any control. And yes, it's true, you've got total control, but you're also tied to that truck and you're never going to grow because you're so fixed on having total control or that because I was going to say a second ago, the other thing about parenting and being a boss or a leader is that you also have to allow them to fail
Mm,
without these harsh penalties. Like I let these guys make mistakes, and when they make the wrong decision, it's also you have to say, you made the decision you made with the information you had. Even if it was wrong, well, I trust your judgment. And that lets people grow. You can't expect 100% success all the time. That's ridiculous. And really, I think it's long term, it's probably more of an impediment than uh, a metric of success. It's if you can't fail, if there's no room to fail, where are you going to innovate? How are you going to make any discoveries if you're always petrified of failings? So build some failure into your metrics of success. And I'm shooting for 75, 80%
mm,
success rate. I think 100%, it's possible, but at what cost? So if you're running a corporation and, not to pick them, I think if you're running something that big, if you have 30,000 employees, you've got to run a different type of operation. But um, for us, there's going to be damage, there's going to be failure. You just have to deal with it and allow room for it and not get all worked up about it.
mm. It's a really great insight. And it's interesting because, like you said, you need to allow people the room to fail and also to make the right decisions to rectify that problem. Because
Yeah,
you, being the business owner, you want to be able to step away from the business. And if everyone always makes a mistake and says, okay, let me reach out to Jesse to see what to do, everything at the end falls onto you, right? But if you
yeah,
can teach your employees to be independent thinkers, critical thinkers, and figure out the problems themselves, then instead of them thinking, oh, like, let me just reach out to Jesse, what would Jesse
yeah,
do? What should I do in this case? And
yeah,
then you really build that into your company culture. And I think that allows you to take that step back from the previous 70-hour works week that you were doing. And it's also very rewarding for your employees because they're no longer just sort of, a cog in the mechanism. They get to think for themselves. You give them that freedom. They get to make mistakes themselves. And like you said, mistakes is a really great place to learn from. Oh, we made this mistake here. How can I improve the process in the future? No one's perfect. I'm sure
yeah,
you've made plenty of mistakes growing, and you probably learned the most from your mistakes rather than from your successes.
yeah. I mean, you could nobody could tell me anything. I had to go and figure it out. I think when I first made the website, I had this little passage on there about how much experience I had and where it all came from, and that over my career, I had broken everything there was at some point. You
Mm.
name it, I've broken it. And everybody told me like, you don't want that on the website. Take that off. That's not good. But it's true. I've broken everything there is, but that's how I ended up knowing everything that I know.
Mm.
I've broken TVs, everything. Right. Oh man.
It's painful. And you still I can tell the way you're talking about it. You're thinking back to the things you broke, and I've had
Yeah.
the same experience. My brother and I used to have our own moving company, and we had one client. Don't ask me how he did this, but we never did again. But they had three really nice TVs, and we somehow managed to break every single one of them. There was no visible damage to the TV,
Yeah.
but what it was is when we wrapped it, we left the wall mount on and we put it on its back. So there was too
Yeah.
much upwards pressure on the actual screen.
Right.
So it just caused some internal problems. Now we of course took very good care of this customer. We still stay in touch with this customer actually. They've been a really great raving fan of ours. but we're never going to do that again. And now that's in our SOP is like, this is how you wrap a TV correctly if you're not using a TV box, or when you're using a TV box, X, Y, and Z, right?
Yeah.
So you really do learn the most, but I can tell you had some pains there from remembering all the things you broke. Does any one thing come to mind when you think of sort of the biggest damage you've ever had?
Um, yeah, I don't know. There's some funny ones there where like I dropped something and it somehow didn't break, like this glass tabletop that was round. It fell, it rolled all the way to the end of the truck. It hit something, it fell over, and it was doing that wobbling thing. And then at the end, we're just like, how did that not break? And then there's other times where you touch a piece of glass and it just explodes. So I don't know. Yeah, I think I've broken so many mirrors. I've got like 30,000 years of bad luck at this point. So, but I don't believe that one. I think my luck's pretty good.
There we go. I love that outset. Now, I want to touch on, well, actually, before we do this, let's talk about the size of your team right now and how many moves you're doing a month, more or less.
Yeah. There's about 40 guys, and we do about 10 moves a day.
Amazing. And
Yeah.
is that all just in that Richmond area, or do you also do surrounding areas?
No, we just do the metro area here, like suburbs. But
That's great. So
yeah,
10 moves a day, you're doing around 300 moves a month, 40 guys. When I spoke with you on the phone last before this podcast, you said you kind of hit that sweet spot when it came to the amount of employees
yeah.
get to keep that company culture. Do you feel like 40 is around the right spot for you?
For me, yeah, I feel like it's. I mean, I could see how it changed going from 13 to 20 to 30 to 40, and it loses a little bit of something each time.
Hmm.
When it,
Do you,
when it was 13, it couldn't be any tighter. Everybody knew everything about everyone else. You couldn't make a bad crew if you tried,
mm,
and it was just too easy. But the Peter principle says everybody will be promoted to their level of incompetence, and if we went to 50, that's probably where it would be. I would start to not know people, and they would not know me. See, it's kind of a strange point it's gotten to now, where there's now people who've worked there who've never worked with me before.
mm,
And that was never the case before. I was working on Trump. And then slowly over time, it got to a point where half of these people have never worked with me before. And so they don't know me like that. They think I just sit in the chair, and I don't know what they think I do all day. But I know, because I know from all my experience what the guys think about not only the people in the office but the owners of the business. Everybody's always just endlessly talking shit about them, and I wasn't really ever that person. I wasn't like, I hate the boss, because you have to hate the boss. But those people are always there, and there's probably people who feel that way about me, but I can't really do anything about that. I think it's just how it is.
we've got to get you back out on the trucks again.
I I don't
That,
know.
that'd be a pretty crazy dollar figure we'd have to pay you to get you back on the trucks again, right?
I do think about it, because I do think it would be incredibly valuable, but
Mm,
it's just doesn't work.
hmm. Do you still find yourself ever at the end of a long day, whether that's for you or whether that's for your crew, do you still find yourself shooting pool sometimes at the end of the day? I feel like that would be a good way to get to know
Yeah,
each other.
yeah,
Amazing.
yeah, yeah. And we would have parties, and that's one of my most important roles there, is to hang out and play pool and grill on the loading dock and those kind of things. Like, that's my yeah. That's like a really important part of my day.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
And I think the audience is going to get a lot of benefit from this because a lot of the guys who are listening, the moving company guys and girls, moving company owners, they might have one truck, they might have 5 trucks, 10, 15, right? Well, maybe not that many, but it's sort of in that range, you know? And
yeah,
they want to expand and they want to grow. but it's really nice to remember what we're doing all of this for. I think your business mentor mentioned that at the beginning. You want more money, more time, and more freedom.
Yeah,
Now, it seems you've gone through that whole life cycle. You had your 70-hour work weeks. I'm sure you learned a lot through it. You expanded a lot.
yeah,
And when we spoke on the phone, you actually said you pulled back a little bit. There was a while where you took too big of a step out of the business so that you could focus a little bit more on your oil
yeah,
painting, spending time with family. I'd love to hear about what that journey looked like.
yeah. It was. I think it was what I thought I always wanted. Was that because the business had gotten to a point where I actually didn't need to be there. There was no reason for me to be there.
Mm.
Everything else was handled. The daily operation was handled. I still need to sign checks and maybe fill out some paperwork, but I could not be there for a week and it wouldn't matter.
Mm.
And so I was playing a lot of golf and painting and, just doing whatever I felt like doing. Um, I think it was fine, but it doesn't, it's what happened was there was a guy there who I trusted, somebody who I hired in the very beginning who was stealing money.
Mm.
And she, you just can't, it's not that you can't trust anybody, but if you leave a door open, don't be surprised if somebody goes through it. Um,
Mm.
and I guess, I don't know, if I'm giving any advice, I think what was interesting about it was that the person who's doing it is always the last person you would think that would ever do anything like that.
Mm. And out of curiosity, is that just a one time that's happened to you, or that's happened before in the past, and then you sort of starting to realize a pattern?
No, it was just that one.
Hmm. So it's interesting. Take that step back, but still monitor at the high level.
Yeah, and well, because that got fired, then I stepped into their role, and so now I settled back into 2 days a week, which is good. It's a good balance. It's the right balance where it's like, no, I don't need to be there, but it is good for me to be there 2 days a week, um, just to be involved and to talk to people and to be a part of it.
Now, if that event didn't happen, where one of your employees stole from you, do you still think you'd be playing a lot of golf and doing a lot of oil painting, or was something calling you to come back to the business on a less time demanding scale?
I think really I probably would have stayed out and my business would have suffered as a result slowly
Mm.
over time. It
So, what
just
does it
would
look like
have.
now with you 2 days in the week in the office? What do your responsibilities look like?
I answer the phones and
Mm.
book jobs and talk to customers.
Is that
And
because that's something you like?
yeah, I do. I do like it. I'm good at it. I don't mind doing it at all. It's actually hard. It's really hard, um, but it's good. I don't really think it's good for anybody to have nothing to do all the time, or just do nothing but whatever you feel like doing all the time. That's just not. It's just not good for you. It's fun for a while, but I don't think it's good for you in the long run. Um,
It's so interesting because when we're stuck in the thick of it, in the rat race or whatever you want to call it, you think, oh, all I want is just as much free time as I can have so I can go hang out on the beach, drink my
yeah,
drinks or whatever. And then when you get to that point, which you need to get to that point to realize that that's not all that life is about. I think only when you get to that
yeah,
personally, when you put in the hard work to get there, you realize actually this isn't. And don't get me wrong, I'm sure for some people that's exactly what they want. But for me, myself, and by the
yeah,
sounds of what you're saying as well, it's really not what you want. You want some sort of high level of purpose, community, all of these things, which it sounds like your moving company brings you every single one of those things. And you said as well,
yeah.
two of your kids are involved in the company. Did I catch that right?
That's right. Mhm.
You plan on handing it down to the kids? What does that look like?
Oh, I have no idea where that's going.
Hmm.
No idea.
How old are they? How old are they, if you don't mind me
They're
asking?
they're 21 and 19,
Okay,
which is
exciting.
younger than I would typically hire. I usually do not
Mm.
hire anybody under 25, but they have to learn somehow.
So
It's good for
I've got so many questions for you. So thank you for sharing all of this, all of very interesting insights. The first thing I want to touch upon is you said the sales part isn't always easy, but you're very good at it. First of all, what does your sales process look like? You pick up the phone, do you push for in-person estimates or video estimates, or do you just try and close them there and then on the phone?
yeah, I for the most part, if I can estimate over the phone, I will. If it's over a certain size, I'll go see it
Mm,
without question. Um, if it's under a certain size, like if I think it can be done in one truck and I can get a good sense of it over the phone, or maybe they send pictures, then I will, just because everywhere here where I live is a half an hour away.
mm.
I could do two estimates and it might take 3 or 4 hours. That's half the day. I can't spend half my day doing two estimates uh, because it's just me. So, you know, yeah, if it can be done on the phone, I will. But I think that, I think what we're doing is the guys who I promote up to the phone are guys who have been movers in the past.
Mm.
I would never just hire somebody and say, here's your job to talk to these people who call about moving and you've never done this job before. Um, I think that's valuable to the customer. And I think it's going to actually, well, I imagine it would become even more valuable in the future if people are, well, it's already like that. I call a business and I'm talking to a computer or I'm talking to someone. If I can get someone on the phone, they can't really answer any questions, but I think it's really valuable to be able to. First of all, somebody answers the phone and says hello. It's no push button for this, push three to go to this person's voicemail.
Mm.
That's infuriating. It's a person who answers the phone, and that person is also somebody who has firsthand experience with this whole process that you're trying to understand. So we'll continue that. I wouldn't really ever let that go. I don't think a computer would do that, at least not yet. But so that's my opinion about that. Is that it's got to be somebody who knows what they're talking about, somebody who can answer questions.
Now, there's a very interesting trade-off there because you say you'd like to have someone with industry experience. They've been boots on the ground.
Mm-hmm.
Do you choose your best guys and you promote them into this, or do you keep your best guys in the truck because you want to deliver the highest quality?
Right. Uh, it's. I think that if they have the right skill set to do the phone job well, then the sacrifice is worth it. Um, but also, I had people doing both. I had them doing like 2 days on the truck, 2 days on the phone, which I thought was good because that way, if they do a bad estimate, it may just be the job they end up. So, and you've got to be accurate, but it's worth it. Yeah,
I think that's a great middle ground to have them doing both because then they still know what the day-to-day work feels like. Plus, they're doing the estimates, and also
yeah,
it breaks apart their schedule a little bit, right? Like they're probably looking forward to having a little bit of a
right,
break, being in the office and
right,
taking calls. And then after they've been in the office for 2 days, they're like, okay, I'm ready to get back on the truck again. So
right.
I think that's a really, really good way of doing it and hiring from within. Now, you also mentioned that generally speaking, you don't hire anyone under the age of 25. Why is that?
They don't understand the value of anything. They don't own anything.
Mm,
They don't. They can't grasp the concept of like why is it a big deal to scratch the table. They'll tell me, and they've said this. I know this because I've heard this. What's the big deal? It's just a table. Yeah, okay, that's true, but somebody paid a lot of money for it, and it has value to them.
mm.
So you have to. So they just aren't ready. They're not mature enough. They're physically mature enough, and in fact, maybe even in that category, better than somebody who's older, but they're not mature enough to do it well. Everything about this is also relating to people. I don't really know. I've done a lot of different jobs: plumbing, carpentry, roofing, everything. I've done everything. This one in particular, you have to deal with people on a pretty intimate level. Um, you're working with them directly, and they're very stressed out, and you have to be able to talk to them because half the time that's all it takes is just listening and talking them through it. You know,
It's
and
super
a 22
interpersonal.
year old, yeah, like a 22-year-old kid with earbuds in, they're not making anybody feel good. They're like, this dude isn't barely even here. You
Yeah,
know?
they might be good at moving something and being efficient at
Yeah,
that, but there's more to it than that. It's very interpersonal, like you said, more so than the other labor or service-based industries. It's a very
yeah,
stressful time in someone's life. They're uprooting everything. And then on top of that, it's that they're letting you into their home. You're touching, physically touching all of their personal belongings, wrapping it.
yeah,
They may have been in this place for 5, 10 years, a lot of sentimental value. And it's like you said, half of the job is just talking them through it, letting them know it's going to be okay, giving them a lay of the land. This is what today's going to look like. We'll be out of your hair
yeah,
in 8 hours. You're still going to have to unpack and everything, but we'll have done all the heavy lifting and you'll be in your new location. You'll have a great new home to sort of settle
yeah,
into.
yeah.
Goes a really
I,
long way.
I think it's really good if you ever get the chances to be the customer. Um,
Mhm.
it's you know what's funny is that because in recently, like I've had to hire my own company a few times, and I've been the customer, and
Mhm.
I've found myself doing and saying and thinking all the things that we always like just like the things that we say about customers, like they all say these things, and I was doing it too.
That's funny.
Like I'm wondering where this is, or but like I'm doing all the customer stuff, and
You become the stereotype, which you're
yeah,
always talking about day in, day out.
oh yeah, oh they're all the same. I'm the same way, and I think anybody would be in that situation, but you don't know until you're in that situation. You know,
Hmm.
like they always say, like I'm tired just from watching you guys. Yeah, I had that experience.
Mm.
I was worn out. Like I didn't do anything. I
And
went
it's tough. It's underestimated because when it's funny you mentioned this because I've never been the client of moving services. I've always like actually since I had the moving company, I don't think I've moved once. And I live pretty light anyway, so it's never a
yeah,
difficult move. But it's interesting to be on the other side of that to understand how it feels, so that you can better serve your customer. But being the
yeah,
customer, even if you're not doing the moving, it's really hard to completely disattach, right? So you're still emotionally
yeah,
vested in the move, even though you've paid someone to do it. So although it's 8 hours, you still have that emotional turmoil throughout the whole thing.
right,
And that's
right,
why they say, yeah, I'm just tired from watching you do it because they're invested.
yeah,
They're seeing what's coming in and out of the house. You're asking them some questions, maybe, as the movers. So super interesting. Now, seems like you're good at the sales side of things. Do you use any kind of CRM or anything to track all of your data?
no.
Oh, so all internally, I imagine through Excel sheets and stuff like that.
Um, yeah, I don't know. Computers are minimum.
Hmm. But you seem to have a good process.
Yeah, there's a like a software thing that we had developed, which is basically they just took everything we were doing on paper and put it into a computer, so it keeps records of everything. But I've never, I don't have any sort of business background. Like it shows me all these things like projections for the third quarter, but I don't. I mean, I don't know what to do with that.
Hmm.
I'm looking at the calendar. If the calendar's full for 5 weeks out, I'm like, all right, we're good.
Sweet. The reason I was curious if you use any CRM, do you know your conversion rate from like interested parties calling to actually booking a move?
Yeah, it's pretty good. I mean, it's pretty rare that I talk to someone on the phone who doesn't book the job
Hmm.
because we have this really incredible reputation. It's almost like you would look at my numbers and be like, "Wow, this guy's quite a salesman." In reality, I'm not really doing much sales. Like I'm just telling them how much I think it'll cost, and they book it because that's the reputation we have.
I think you might also undersell yourself. These things might just feel like second nature to you now, but they
Yeah,
actually translate to really good sales. And then on the back of that, you have a great service and a great reputation.
yeah,
What do you
yeah.
think it takes for
My
someone who
sales
doesn't have?
approach, I
Sorry,
mean,
go ahead.
my if I have a sales approach, it's usually that I am really put off by salesmen and people who want to sell me something, especially when they offer me some sort of an upgrade or like, oh yeah, you could take advantage of this deal. I'm telling the customer, you know, if you book it in the afternoon, if you want to bring some stuff down from the attic, you could make this cheaper. I'm telling them ways to make the move cheaper. I'm telling them here's the most efficient way to do this, not because it benefits me the most, but here's the best way to get this done. Here's how you pay. You don't have to pay any more than what's necessary. That's what I would want to hear. If I heard that, I would be sold. That when somebody's trying to sell me something, I'm just like, forget it. Or if it seems like they're reading from a script, I'm just so turned off by that. So I
And I
don't have a script when people call me. They just most of the time I just let them start talking. Like, well, tell me what's happening. What's the plan? Um,
and I think that might be what sells. Is it's genuine, and in a world where, especially as a business owner, you're being sold stuff 24/7, right? I'm sure you
yeah,
know the pains of that. You have your guards up. So when you want to call and get some information, that's actually all you want. You want information. You don't want to be sold. You don't want to say if you book today, you're going to get this discount. You want to
yeah,
be told, okay, this is our pricing. This is what I
yeah.
recommend because I've been in the industry for so long. And here's some ways you can keep it cheaper. I'm sure that comes across very genuine and refreshing to the customer.
I think so. Yeah, it's just what would I want to hear? The same reason when I made the website, I put the prices on the website because I didn't know any different, and people would call me and they're like, "I can't believe you guys put the prices on the website." I'm like, "Yeah, it's why wouldn't I?" Our website has information on it that's useful. There's no stock photos or like a bunch of bullshit. It's just bullshit. I mean, most of the time, you go to the website and it's just a bunch of feel good bullshit, but you don't really get any information. So I put everything on there: the price, the minimums, the structure, what we do, what we don't do. So that, I mean, maybe that's the other reason by the time people are actually calling, half their questions have been answered and they've already made up their mind. I don't know. I think, yeah, maybe it's probably good to have started this business knowing nothing about business and just
Hmm.
thinking, what would I want to say?
And I think that's a more macro business approach is like, let me put myself in the shoes of the customer. Because we had the same thing here in
Yeah,
Miami, is there was a lot of lack of transparency. And Miami is a completely different market to Richmond, I'm sure, but there was such a lack
yeah,
of transparency when it came to pricing. And then you had a 7% fee for this, and then you had add-ons, and you had this, and you had that. And the reason my brother and I distinguished ourselves was because we kept it super simple. We have a
yeah,
minimum, 3 hour minimum, whatever it is. Here's our price for two, three, four guys. With packing, we actually didn't probably should have charged for supplies, but we just priced that into our stuff. But we kept it super simple. And like you
yeah,
said, this is something as well, which I'm sort of putting two and two together, is you pre-qualified your customers by the information you had on your website. People who didn't want to pay the pricing you had, they already checked out your website and they've pre-qualified themselves, which at the end of the day makes your job much
yeah,
easier. And if they are sort of on
yeah,
the borderline, that's when talking to a real person goes a really long way. They get to speak to the business owner. I know that goes such a long way for a lot of people, whether or not you mentioned that or not
yeah,
yourself. So that's really, really fascinating. Now, I love that transparency too. It is refreshing in this current day and age. Is just
yeah,
transparency goes a long way. I still don't understand why people don't put their pricing on their websites. Like call us for a quote, as if they're going to get more information from the customer because they have to fill in information beforehand. Like people
yeah,
like just picking up the phone, talking to someone. And with moving, I generally find we saw the same thing. We had a high conversion rate. We had around a 65% conversion rate. Felt good to us from calls to book jobs. And it is relatively simple. Just be a human being, talk to them a little bit, get to know
Yeah.
more about their exact situation. Why are you moving? What are you moving? When do you want to move? It's pretty simple.
Yeah.
Then you go there, you give them a quote. Oftentimes as well, I don't know if this is the case for you, but we would just tell them an hourly. They would often find in their own head how many hours they thought it was going to take. Now, of course, when you get to larger jobs, this isn't the case. But I wouldn't even estimate how long I think it's going to take them. I would just tell them our guys are really great. You've seen our reviews online. You've obviously come to us for a reason. Often they come for referrals and such as well. This is how much it's going to be an hour. We bill you a deposit to book the date off for you. And then at the end of the move, we go ahead and settle the rest. And I wouldn't even have to tell them I think it's going to take 5 hours. They would just be like, okay, sweet. I've got all the information I need. Let's go ahead and move forward with it. So
Yeah.
those are the kind of customers for me, anyhow.
Yeah.
Now, go ahead.
Oh no, I'm streaming. Mhm.
So you found business success in all facets of the word. You found yourself now with complete control over your time. You're doing the jobs that either move the needle the most or that you enjoy the most. What does the next couple years look like for you? I know when we spoke last, I'm curious if this is still your sentiment. You're not looking for so much growth anymore. What does success look like from here on? Or is it just more of the same?
Um, it's caught me off guard. I don't know. Haven't thought about it, but I think that I really don't know. So I would suppose the answer would be to continue doing what we're doing
it it's a nice place to be at. If you don't know what you want,
without being stagnant.
yeah,
Yeah,
without being stagnant.
yeah. So I guess that's the balance to strike here is
Awesome. So
stay sharp.
now this is going to be a little bit different from moving industry focused work, but at what point did you realize you really loved oil painting? How did you get started with that? It's a very particular hobby. How did you get
Yeah,
started with
I just well, I'm like I wouldn't be surprised if this was something similar to a lot of people who have a small business or maybe are even in like the same business that I'm in is that I think I graduated with a very solid C average in school, which is just, you know, average. Not that that was the best that I could do, but I was kind of bored in school, but so which meant that I would be drawing all the time.
Mm,
That's where it started from there. And that was what I went to school for, which is why I had the moving job in the summers and the weekends. And then drawing turned into painting and just developed and matured. And I I like to improvise. I think that's the common thing that I have when I'm working. When I'm painting, it's improvising. And I was probably some people did not find it very some people didn't appreciate it, but I I thought, well, you just don't understand. And I mean the guys I was working with when I was saying like, well, yeah, we could walk all this stuff down the hallway and take the elevator, but the balcony is right up there. So what if we get up on top of the truck
mm,
and you just drop all that stuff down and we'll hold a blanket here and catch it.
mm,
I just wanted to improvise. I wanted to come up with a better way to do everything. And so and I do that when I'm painting and drawing. And I guess that means that I just like to be a creative problem solver. And what a great thing to be if you're a mover, because that's all you're doing all day is solving problems.
mm.
And
Seems like a massive creative outlet for you, which
yeah,
it seems like your brain is always looking for that in life, even when it
yeah.
comes to something which a lot of people would consider linear. This is how you do moving, but you try and think outside the box a little bit. Is there another solution to it?
I think I just have to. It just comes natural.
Hmm, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So, and I know you have a lot of different oil paintings. I've checked out some of them on a website. Is this just a personal thing for you that you get a lot of joy from, or do you sell any of these?
I did in the past, but now most of the time, if I make something, it's usually something that I like.
Mm,
So I don't really have any interest in. I mean, I don't know. Everyone's always encouraging me that you should show it, but I don't really see the point.
mm.
I just do it because I like doing it. And then I hang them up. They're all hanging up in the office, so it's part of the decoration.
That's really great though. It sounds like it's much more about the journey than the destination. You actually enjoy the process of doing it
Yeah,
and having it as a creative outlet.
yeah,
The actual end result is nice, and like you said, it's a decoration, but it's more so the process which you really seem to
yeah,
enjoy. Hmm. Now,
yeah. It's just like, sure, go ahead.
thank you. Final thing before I go ahead and let you off. And first of all, thank you so much for joining us. It's been a very refreshing conversation because often we're just talking about scaling this, that, and the other. How do we get the business to where we need it to be? And this has been a little bit more,
Yeah.
how to build company culture. How do you take a step back? At what point do you know that you should take a step back? But now I am going to take a little bit more to the sort of marketing side of things. You've obviously seen a lot of business success. What has brought you most of that business success? I know you said building a brand has been really amazing, but outside of that, how do you bring in all of your moves? Like, what are your top three lead generators?
Um, I think it's social media, those Facebook groups. It's just people referring other people, and that's usually enough. That's why people have their mind made up when they call. Their friend told them we were good.
Hmm.
We do a lot of repeat business. So I would say between the repeat business and the referrals from one person to another, it's got to be half, if not more, of the jobs that we get. And
Wow.
then there's also people that see the truck. People like the truck. This is the logo here, which I designed, and I've always said that was the hardest part of starting business was coming up with a logo that works, that really works. Um, yeah, people like the design. Uh, so I'd say it's those three. It's a
Okay.
good branding, good logo, and then well, the other two are just relying on the fact that we did a good job in the first place, and it translated into more work. Uh, but it's not anything I necessarily track or could give you any real numbers on.
No, it's the old school way of doing things. You let the quality talk for itself, you know?
Yeah,
You have a good brand presence because you do a great job, and that person tells 3 people, 2 of those actually end up using you, and then they do it, and it's sort of just, compounds over time, which is really
yeah,
amazing. Now
yeah.
you did say you do a little bit of social media. Is that organic stuff, or do you do any paid stuff?
Oh, I don't do any. No, I don't do any social media. I mean that people will communicate with other people on their neighborhood group or something, and I've seen it though. They do send me the screenshots where someone will ask who they should call, and it just says Moxie Movers, Moxie Movers, Moxie Movers all the way down. There's not even anybody else in there.
And you don't even encourage that from your customers. That's just a testimony to how good of a job you and your team is doing.
Yeah, and I think that I was thinking about this. How do you find these people who are going to do this job? This is a horrible job. Nobody wants to do this job. Nobody says, I want to be a mover. You end up being a mover.
Mhm.
How do you find good people to do this? And I think that was, I don't know. I don't know if I got lucky or somehow I attracted the right people, but I put out some ads that were a little bit strange. And and people would actually, well, this was Craigslist. I don't even know what you use now, but then it would say something like moving company in search of Capricorn or Taurus, uh, Taurus and Virgo for immediate work. And some people would write back like really irritated by this and like, relax. It's not for you. But some people would write back and say, like, I want to work here because it was ridiculous. It's but it resonated with me for some reason. So Finding people who think the way that you do. It's not about how big they are. You probably know this. Some of the best guys who I've ever worked with are like 5'6", 140 pounds, and they can outwork these big guys easy all day. The
Mhm.
funny thing is, the biggest guys I've ever hired, the big, strong guys who look like they'd be great, were not. They couldn't do it. They get
They
tired.
struggle. Mhm.
Yeah, it's wiry, small guys. They do the best. But so I was never hiring based on like I definitely wouldn't hire somebody with experience. That was always a bad sign.
Mm.
I'm looking for somebody with no experience who doesn't look like a mover. These are the guys I'm looking for. And that's kind of been the case everywhere I've worked.
I love that. So by putting out the ad, I think you found people who take themselves a little bit less serious. Because
Yeah,
if they're already getting upset about the fact that the ad has a little joke or whatever it is in it,
yeah,
not someone you want someone who's uptight in your business. Sounds like
yeah.
25 or over is of course going to be great. You like the wiry guys and people who are just willing to and then put in the ad you got a pool table and beers after work and it sounds like we we got a good
Yeah,
plan here.
yeah, yeah. So
Amazing.
do the opposite of everything you think you should do. That's the answer.
Awesome. Well, Jesse, I want to again thank you so much for joining us. Where can people find you online, yourself and Moxie Movers?
Um, well, website's moxiemovers.com. There is a Moxie Movers Instagram, but mostly it's just paintings. That was where I was posting all my paintings. So that's really it. I grew up before the internet, so you know it's important, but I also kind of don't like it.
I like that.
I
It
can do
really
without
opens.
it. I can do without it.
That's nice. So, what I will go ahead and do then, sadly, this does need the internet for it to survive, but we're gonna
Okay,
go
yes. It
ahead.
is. It's not going anywhere. I've accepted that.
We're gonna post it to YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. I'll go ahead and put your website URL there as well. I'm
Yeah,
sure when people click through on that, they can go ahead and reach you by the phone number. Might even have the pleasure of speaking with you. But thank you once again for joining us. It's really been a pleasure. It seems like more of the same is what you're looking for. I wish you all the best with that. Your kids being involved in the business too, I'm sure is a blessing and a curse. But
yeah.
wishing you all the best of that and thank you once again for your time.
Thanks. Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it.